Today we have the Sony Cinemaline FX3. Welcome back. Today's video is highly controversial. But before we get into that, if you guys aren't subscribed to the channel, consider hitting subscribe. Also hit that bell icon to get notified when I make new content. With that out of the way, let's talk about the Sony FX3. There's a ton of videos on the internet talking about how the Sony FX3 is the same exact camera as the Sony A7S III. And in my opinion, guys, it's not. It's just like when the Sony A7C came out, they said it was the same as the A7 III in a different body. It's not. There's obvious differences, and we're going to go over those in a second. But my first analogy for you here is I drive a Ford F250 Super Duty. It has Ford's flagship V8 motor in it. Now, Ford also makes Mustangs that have a flagship V8 motor. Does that make it the same vehicle because they share a V8 motor? No. This camera has the same sensor as the FX6. Does that mean that you shouldn't buy the FX6 because it's the same as the FX3? No, it's not. So I don't know why people keep beating to death that this camera is the same as the Sony A7S III, and it's not. It's two different animals. This particular camera is meant for video. It's a video-centric camera. That's why they badged it Cinemaline. No, it's not a full-on cinema camera. Is it capable? Yes, it's totally capable. It should be Netflix approved because the FX6 is, and they do share the same internals and stuff like that. But the only thing that this is missing that people are bitching about on the internet is a variable built-in NDs. And what you gave up for that was the active stabilization, in my opinion, which is perfect because this thing can go on a gimbal or you can use it handheld with the active. It's so versatile. You can make this a big rig. You can get it down to an extremely small, compact size. I mean, here it is. I put the Peak Design clutch strap on mine, and this thing is just fantastic. You hold it at waist level. All your controls are right here. It's just a fantastic camera. Now, switching to this camera from the FS5 we're filming on now, that's a full cinema camera where all the controls are on the outside. This camera, which differentiates it from the A7S III, is it's got the same setup. I'm used to hitting certain buttons on this camera now that are right there, you know, right at my fingertips. This has the same thing. You got your iris button, your ISO button, your white balance button, your thumb wheel here to make different changes to the menu, your big record button right on top. I mean, there's a ton of stuff here on this body that screams it's video-centric, it's a Cinemaline compact camera. It's not, it doesn't have an EVF like the A7S III because it's not a photo camera. Yes, it can take stills, but somebody buying this, you're not going to be out doing photography with this. And if you did buy this for photography, you probably should go back to the internet and do a little more research because this is a Cinemaline video-centric camera in a small form factor. I'm just so tired of seeing videos on here comparing this to the A7S III. It's not. You should be comparing this to the FX6 because it's way closer to that than the Sony A7S III, in my opinion anyway. Okay, so what do you get with this thing that's so different than the Sony A7S III? Well, first of all, the entire body, the chassis of this is a nice magnesium alloy. It's very robust and well built. Again, all your buttons are all video-centric buttons on it. It has a built-in fan in it, which is awesome, so you don't have to ever worry about overheating. Also, it has plenty of quarter 20s on it, so you can go with the cageless design that everybody's talking about. But another thing that people don't understand, the big difference in this is you do get the XLR handle, which anybody who knows anything about shooting on professional cameras, cinema cameras, you're going to need XLR audio. You're going to need good audio inputs. And you get that right here. They give you the top handle. This has 4 inputs in it. You can do 4 channels. Has all your controls right here. This is a pro level top handle that they give you with it, which would cost you roughly about $700 if you had to buy the A7S III and then go buy the XM3, I believe it is. It's a little different module than this, but it goes on the A7S III if you want to get XLR in that. But again, to me, you're kind of going backwards if you're buying a Sony A7S III to do video. I mean, most YouTubers that buy them, they're doing primarily video. So in my mind, you guys made the mistake, and now you're just looking to blame the Sony FX3 for your mistake. You're not a hybrid shooter at that point. You're shooting video 90% of the time. You can get away with using your iPhone for photos. If you are a photographer, then you should be looking at the Sony A7R4 for photography. That's what I would go buy for photography. I have a Sony A7 III, which I'm perfectly happy with, but I do mainly video here on the channel. So I have an FS5 that we're shooting on now. This is a full-on cinema camera. And now I just picked up the FX3, which I'm super, super excited about owning. I've been shooting with it for a day. I got it yesterday and just been playing with it around the house. And it's, I'll tell you what, the sky's the limit with this thing. You're going to see a lot of much better content coming with this camera because it's just so darn versatile and just so easy to hold and handle. I mean, I don't know why anybody is complaining about this camera. This is great that Sony's given us options. I mean, this was the option I chose. I knew what I wanted to do with it. I'm video first, so this camera just, it's video first. And also, like I said, I put the strap on here. It's so comfortable in the hand. You open up this flip screen. I give it a little tilt, and I hold it like this. And it's just, you know, chest level. You can walk around with it. The active stabilization in this is fantastic. It's just a great camera. I got the Sony 24mm G Master on it. That's what I've been running for testing this, and it's been stellar. This G Master has given me a lot of problems on my other cameras before with focus breathing. So far with this one, knock on wood, it hasn't given me any trouble, so it's been great on here. But I love the tally lights on it. I love, you know, the menu system on it. It took me a few minutes to get used to it. It is different than all the other Sony cameras, but it is laid out much more easier. I do see what everybody was saying about the menus. It's totally more easier to navigate. And then, of course, everything's set up customly. But everything the way they have it stock from the factory, all these buttons on the back are labeled for video-centric work. You know, you have your peaking, your zebras, your shutter, your focus magnification, and again on the top you got your white balance, ISO, iris. I mean, everything's laid out for video. It's just a perfect setup for video. But again, getting back to the whole thing with comparing this to the Sony A7S III, in my mind, it just doesn't equate. And if you're comparing these two cameras, you're obviously bitter about something. And most people are very bitter about the variable NDs that didn't get included in this. I mean, I agree. I have variable ND on this FS5 I'm shooting on now. When I take this outside and put it in auto, it's fantastic. It's a game changer. I mean, I will say it is fantastic to have. But is it a deal breaker? No. Because this camera can go from something like this, a handheld run and gun, fantastic cinema camera in the palm of your hand that you can vlog with, to a full-out rig that could be as big as my FS5 sitting on the tripod. So that's the beauty part of this, the versatility. And throwing this on a gimbal, you don't need a special gimbal for this because there's no viewfinder on it. So you can go underslung with any gimbal. You don't have to buy a special gimbal. You know, that's, if you put in Sony A7S III or any of the other cameras that have the viewfinder, the EVF, it's going to usually hit on a gimbal. You got to buy a special gimbal or a bigger gimbal. So for me, you know, this is just a home run. And people that are bashing this camera, again, I think they're upset that they didn't buy it first. And, you know, like I said, it's for video. If you're going to shoot video on YouTube or do any kind of documentary work, interviews, you got the XLR handle, you can mic up multiple people. You're not going to do that with a Sony A7S III. You have one 3.5 millimeter mic jack, which, you know, the audio from that to XLR is night and day. So what are you going to do? You're going to buy a splitter and mic two people up with 3.5 mics? It's not going to be that great. Can't control levels on both of those. You have to do a lot of work in post. This gives you everything you want with this XLR handle that they include with the Sony FX3. So this is just a fantastic way to get pro-level audio, which I do have a XLR mic coming. I did a order yesterday on Amazon. Got a bunch of stuff coming in. We're going to go over this camera some more in detail, but this is just a video I had to get out there right away after owning this camera for a day and seeing everybody piss and moan on the internet about how it's the same as the Sony A7S III. It's just not. In my opinion, guys, it's totally not. It's a different camera. It's a different animal. It's meant for video creators first, not photography. I mean, it's just a bonus that the thing takes pictures, but it's totally meant for shooting video work. And everybody pisses and moans that it's badged to cinema line. It's badged to cinema line because it's aimed towards people that are making cinematic videos or shooting on an FX6 or an FS5 that are coming from a cinema camera world that wants something smaller. That's why they badged it their cinema line, and it's in their cinema style bodies with the alloy aluminum body, all your video-centric dials and buttons on it. So, you know, that's what it is. And another great function on this is the front rocker dial. You can make any prime lens into a zoom lens with this. With nice smooth zoom, you can control the speed in and out just like I can on my FS5. Right here, you can make this 24mm prime lens into a zoom lens with clear image zoom. And you can do that on any camera. I mean, that's not a special feature for this, but the special part on this is you have the rocker right here, just like I have on my FS5. You have the rocker up top, you have the rocker on the handle. On your normal Sony cameras, you can do the same thing. If you do clear image zoom, use this back dial to zoom in and out. But that's a nice feature that they put on this. They moved the power button to the back, switched that over, so that's much more convenient in my opinion. It's just a better camera. In my opinion, Totally better camera than the Sony than the Sony A7S III. I get confused with all these different cameras I got. All right, so that's it, guys. I don't think I'm going to beat a dead horse here any longer. I just wanted to chuck this video out there. New camera for me. Had it for a day. Loving it so far. But I had to make this video on how this thing does not, in my mind, compare to the Sony A7S III. You guys think otherwise? Leave comments down below. Be sure to hit a like on the video, and we'll see you guys in the next one.